We are
There
live.
it is. Oh, look, and I can see the little check marks, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram.
Yeah.
What is up, everybody? Good morning. Oh, we are so excited.
Oh,
Are you good?
yeah, I'm good. Sorry.
Oh, no, I love your title, Sarah, Plots and Politics, episode 1. Oh, that's so great. Okay, so I'm Corinne Straight. This is Sarah Blessing. We are a part of Project Next, which is an initiative that Sarah Blessing and Tim Peck launched after the 2024 campaign ended. Tim Peck was a Democratic congressional candidate down in District 9, so Southeast Indiana, right by Louisville. Sarah Blessing was a House candidate, a state House candidate down there. And that's how I got connected with these folks. And they kind of decided, like, hey, we got some energy pent up after this election. I think a lot of people, just a lot of people can relate to that. And what can we do with this energy? So they decided to put this energy into a new media project called Project Next. And our goal of Project Next is simply make your life better. And we're going to make your life better by talking about the hard issues, building local connections. Everybody gets really, really bogged down by the terrifying national news that is happening. And so much of it that is just, not only does it feel out of our control, it is completely out of our control. This is a train that is moving. At this point, there's nothing we can do about it. So where can we take back control? Where can we take back some agency and some ownership in our own lives? It's in our local communities. It's in our local library groups, our neighborhood cleanup groups, our little political action groups who are focusing on local issues. And we want to help build those connections for you. We're going to do a variety of shows. We're going to talk about gender issues, gender dynamics. We're going to talk about medical questions. And we're also going to talk about politics, because that is really where my brain is and where my heart is. And when Sarah and I discussed my show and my own topic, of course, it needed to be politics. And this is our very first show. We are going to focus on local issues, state issues, and maybe some national issues as they touch us, but mainly focusing on those local and state issues, because that's where we see the most chance of increased engagement and the most chance where people are not going to be super burned out or defeated. We're not really going to take on the federal government here, but there are some overlapping issues as they affect us at the state level. The name Plots and Politics, I just wanted to share with y'all, actually comes as just a fun fact, because another fun piece of me is not only do I really enjoy politics, I really enjoy history. And I have an ancestor from I believe it's the 17th century of France. He was a nobleman. He was an advisor to the king. He participated in the assassination plot of one of the kings. I believe it was Henry III. I could be wrong on that. Or maybe Henry IV. Don't remember. Anyway, he was kind of a hooligan a little bit. And he was described as someone who was involved in plots and politics throughout his life. And that name just jumped out to me, because as soon as I read that, I was like, bro, like same. Also, plots and politics my whole life. Never going to be involved in an assassination plot, though, so nobody has to worry about that. But this guy really spoke to me. His vision of being involved in plots and politics spoke to me. And pieces of his tomb are actually on display in a museum in Bordeaux, which is where my husband is
so
from.
Cool.
And in Bordeaux, France, where my husband is from and where his family is. So there's just like this fun, full circle connection there. And so that's where the name Plots and Politics comes from. And we hope that this can continue to become and will continue to be a space for fun and civil and informative conversations.
Hey, Kathy, thanks for being on. You're amazing.
Good morning, Kathy.
I asked Corinne to do her own show. I said, let's make it about politics. That's your sweet spot, girl, which you can do many things, but it is one of your many talents. And I said, can you come up with a name? And boy, did you deliver. Tim and I are like struggling so hard coming up with decent names for the shows. So it's amazing. I got to tell you a funny story about, we came up with this name. Well, you told me about it 2 days ago. Yeah. I have to get every major decision approved with my amazing co-founder, Dr. Timothy Peck. Mm-hmm. And he is a very busy man. He's literally the busiest person I know. And so I message him And I'm like, hey, Corinne thought of a name, Plots and Politics. I love it. Is this okay? He doesn't respond. I'm like, we're doing a show in 2 days. I'm like pumping it out there. I'm putting it out there on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. And I'm like, Tim, can you just please, I message him back like an hour later, just let me know if you don't like the name Plots and Politics, because I may have already put it on social media. And if you don't like it, call me and I'll fight you for it. And then he finally responds, he's like, love the name. I'm like, phew. I was 99% confident he was also going to love the name. But I went ahead and like pushed it out there because we are moving, girl.
We are moving. And I don't know if you saw, I put together it's terrible. Hold on.
This is cute. This is cute.
My chalkboard.
Oh, it's cute, except it's in mirror writing, so we can't.
Yes, which hopefully can you see it if it's in mirror writing?
I can see Plots and Politics.
Yeah.
Facebook, YouTube.
Oh, it looks right to me.
See, I can read it backwards.
Oh, no. Okay. Well, I guess it depends.
Corinne, I am going to try to talk to Elmer, who is going to make our merch. And I'm going to see if he can make a mug that's mirror writing so that when we do our live shows, it says the right thing.
I love that. So yeah, I've gotten really good at mirror writing because I write it backwards for TikTok. And so I just wanted to have it in the background. And
that's cute.
I'll have that in the background of some of my videos that I do this week.
Or you could put a mirror behind there and then hang it up on the other side. You know.
I could. We could get real fancy. Oh my gosh. This is like, that would be a real engineering marvel for me because my brain does not work that way. The fact that I was able to do like,
I gotta pull up my notes here. Yeah. Okay. We are talking about a very heavy topic today that needs to be discussed. We are talking about sexual assault allegations in the Indiana state government workplace, and it affects Republicans and Democrats. However, I will say Democrats have been handling it better. They could be better, but they're doing stuff. And we're going to talk about all of the things. You have been reporting on this on your own TikTok, Corinne Straight's TikTok. If you want to see all of her short videos explaining this, but we're going to take you through it now. And we're going to take you through what the allegations are, or you are, Corinne, this expert on this. Good job. And then I'm going to talk about how we try to stop it. And then we've got good news. This is a hopeful show. I know it might not sound like it because we're talking about sexual assault allegations, but have hope, you all, because just in the last day, 2 days really, good stuff is happening that is making me feel a lot better because it is hard living in Indiana.
It is.
So, well, I just want to know, do you want to talk about Republicans, Democrats, all of them? How do you want to break it up, girl?
I think we can kind of lump it all in one bucket and maybe just like do a little timeline because
that's a good idea.
I do think there are some similarities in how these have been handled across party lines, but there is also I kind of think about it as nobody's ever really had the tools to handle allegations like this because until recently they've never been taken seriously. So, I mean, when we talked about some of the election issues in Hendricks County, I used the example of watching that episode of Dateline and the murder happens in the small town. And all of these small town officers are like, ugh, I don't know what to do. This never happens around here, right? Some of that is in play when we look at these kind of sexual assault allegations. If people have been making these allegations for decades and decades, and only in the last few years has anybody started to give a crap about the allegations. We are so far behind in how we handled it compared to how we handle other crimes. And I'm going to use like sexual misconduct as kind of an umbrella term, but know that I mean everything under that umbrella because it is a pretty wide spectrum. But regardless of where these incidents and these crimes fall on that spectrum, they need to be taken seriously. So there just is a general tone of nobody knows what to do. Because nobody
you're so right. Before. And what I'm seeing, what is so pumping me up is there are more women in the Indiana Democratic Party than there used to be.
Yep.
And
we have the record right now. Yeah.
I mean, like, look who ran. Look at our Democratic ballot from November at the women on there.
Oh, gosh.
And they are all women I love and adore and look up to. So these are good people. They're not perfect, but they're good, moral, brave people.
Yep.
And I feel like for the first time, Indiana Democratic women are taking charge and saying it's time to make a policy
Yes.
so that we help these people being abused. And you are right when you say this is new. We used to just not give a crap, and now
Yep.
we are, thankfully, and we need to write some policies. I think you and I are going to be reporting in these next few months what the policies are going to be.
Yep.
And I am pumped about that and thankful for the Democratic women leading our state. One day they're going to get more power than just behind the scenes. I know it. But until then, let's clean this up.
Yep. And
Yeah.
let's start holding people accountable. I mean, to
Yes.
me, that's the bare minimum.
Yes.
So I want to go back to I'll do some timeline work here.
Let's
So
do it.
I'll go back to 2018. In 2018, then Indiana Attorney General Curtis Hill attended a party. It was an end of legislative session party that happened in March of 2018. And I'm not even going to say allegedly, because this Indiana Supreme Court did find him culpable of this. So he did sexually harass, assault, etc. It was called groping, at least 4 women at that party, putting his hands all over them. Disgusting. One of the victims was a state legislator at the time, and the 3 other women were legislative staffers. So these are all public servants. One of them is an elected official, and he is touching them in ways that they did not want to be touched. Super gross. Curtis Hill is an Elkhart guy. That's where I am. Known him for a long time. Nobody was surprised when these allegations came out. I'm going to be super honest. Nobody was surprised. What we see time and time again with predators like this is there's just a pattern of behavior. And as soon as they are held accountable for it, that accountability, that one action of accountability, was usually preceded by many other offenses that just were never caught or never taken seriously, or against victims who didn't come forward, because a lot of people don't come forward for a variety of reasons.
Yep.
So that happened in 2018. There were no criminal charges ever filed against Curtis Hill. And that case has really just been dragging out, to no fault of the victims at all. But the case has been dragging along. Finally, in 2020, the Indiana Supreme Court, because they are the disciplinary body that oversees people who hold licenses in Indiana, doctors, attorneys, teachers, etc. They overseeing the license of Curtis Hill as a practicing attorney. There was a disciplinary action filed, and they said these words, I think, are really, really important. There was clear evidence that Curtis Hill committed a criminal act of battery. So clear evidence that he did this. There is no question. This is not allegedly anymore. He did it. Now, again, going back to the system that doesn't really know how to handle this, it is very unlikely that anybody ever gets prosecuted or held accountable for any of these crimes, because we don't know how to prosecute them. We are looking for evidence. We are looking for, where's the DNA on the back of your sweater from his hand at this party? Like, that doesn't exist, right? So a lot of this is the he said, she said, or the they said.
And I just want to throw in, I heard it's about 4,000 assaults per one conviction. And then I also want to talk about
insane.
Taylor Swift. Just a quick moment about Taylor Swift. She was groped by like a radio guy a few years ago, and like 10 prominent journalists like took pictures of it happening. Mm-hmm. And she still had to go to court, and she still felt like the bad person, getting up in front of court, being interrogated by his lawyers. And mm-hmm. she won the case, but felt terrible, and her mental health suffered. And this is Taylor Swift.
With pictures.
With evidence. And so if it's that hard for Taylor Swift to get justice, what about a regular, normal person?
Yep. And Taylor Swift with pictures. Like, that blew my mind. I mean, the number of women that were like, what do you want us to do? What else do you want us to do? Do we need to use our X-Men powers and freeze time in that moment that their hands are on us, and then assemble all law enforcement. Like they're expecting us to like do these kind of like supernatural things to prove it. Like even pictures weren't enough. So the fact that these are so difficult to prove, and the Indiana Supreme Court said clear evidence, criminal active battery. His law license was suspended for 30 days. That's the only consequence so far that he has suffered. Ooh, right. Ooh. Like, ooh, I get to take a vacation for 30 days. I don't have to practice law. He was still the attorney general at that time.
So this is a Republican, right?
He's a Republican. Yeah. And what's interesting is so that's 2020. Current attorney general in Indiana, Todd Rokita, used Curtis Hill's misconduct as a stepping stone for him to receive the nomination to be Indiana's attorney general. So Curtis Hill was actually kind of kicked out. He was not able to run for re-election in 2020 because Todd Rokita won the nomination at the convention and eventually won the race to be attorney general in 2020. But it's interesting because Todd Rokita does not have a good track record of caring at all about sexual assault or misconduct victims. So it was just an opportunity for Rokita to paint Curtis Hill as a bad character and just use it as a stepping stone for his own career. So I don't think that was any true reckoning that was happening within the Republican Party. Fast forward to 2024, the 4 women who were assaulted by Hill filed a federal lawsuit that was dismissed. They then filed a subsequent lawsuit in the state courts that was set to go on trial just a couple of weeks ago and was also by both parties dismissed. And I think this is a key milestone in this entire timeline because Curtis Hill, of course, came out right away and said, I have been vindicated. These have been lies against me the whole time.
So
blah,
gross.
blah, blah. Even though, again, I will say the Supreme Court said clear evidence he committed a criminal act of battery. And it plays into this narrative of what we are now seeing with Diego Morales, Brian Bosma, the former Speaker of the Indiana House, and recently, and very timely of this week, Senator Greg Taylor here in Indiana. Crossing party lines. Senator Greg Taylor is a Democrat. David Spatsky is another Democrat out of South Bend. This is not a party issue. This is a toxic predator issue that doesn't really know a party. So we have to keep that in mind.
And we're talking about it in politics, but it happens all over in the workplace when there is power. When someone has power over someone else.
That imbalance, right? The imbalance.
The power imbalance. And it's not always men harming women. It could be men harming men. It could be women harming women. It could be women harming men. Power knows no gender, but because a lot of men have the power and a lot of women that are younger and don't have as much and are trying to work their way up, work under these people, this seems to be the MO. You know, so I'm not trying to call out one gender. I want to call out the power problem and what you said so eloquently. We don't have systems in place to protect these people. And when the Me Too movement happened, it did help some. I think that's why we're having this conversation. I think that's why stuff is happening in the Indiana Democrats right now, thankfully, because of the Me Too movement and because more women are getting power in our state Democrat, that too. But just realize this happens to so many people and most people don't even ever talk about it, especially men don't talk about it because of our culture. And I just want to acknowledge anybody listening that is a victim of this. My heart goes out to you. You do not need to be a perfect person to be heard and cared about. They like to do that to the victims. They like to say you're not perfect enough.
To be a good victim.
You're not perfect enough for us to care about you. I'm not perfect and I care about me. Got some action going on.
Sorry, my phone is not. Why is the sound on my phone on? Whoa.
It's okay. That's funny.
Isn't that terrifying?
So I just want to call out, this is a problem everywhere. And we are going to address it in a specific way with Indiana politicians. But my heart goes out to anybody that has been affected by this.
Yeah.
And you do not need to be silent anymore. That's something that's nice about 2024, even though a lot of things are rough. We have more voice. We have social media.
Yep.
We have ways to get our stories out. You don't need to have very much money to just put your story out and say, look, this person did this to me. And you don't even have to say the person's name. You can just say a prominent person in power did this to me and they should be held accountable. You know, you can do it in many different ways. I'm just thankful that we're moving the train forward. Okay, so we got Curtis Hill. Who's the next one? So Curtis Hill is still in power. What is he doing today before you move on?
He's doing nothing. He's attempted to run for governor. He did not do well in the primary. He's attempted to run for Congress after former congressional representative Jackie Walorski passed away a couple of.
I know we lost her. What happened to your internet? Corinne's got bad internet right now. As soon as she gets better, she needs to close all the other apps on her. Hey, are you Corinne?
Yeah.
We lost you there for like 30 seconds. Can you close all the other apps on your phone, on your computer? And then maybe even turn off your phone. I read a bunch about how to make it better.
Oh, good. Is that better?
Yes. Okay. So
sorry about that. Yeah.
Okay, so Curtis Hill's done.
He tried to run to replace Jackie Walorski as the congressional representative up here in District 2 when Walorski passed away. And he did not do well in that either. So these allegations, from what we can tell, have hurt him professionally. So that is something to kind of look at. He is not taken seriously really within the Republican Party anymore. He might be doing some private practice stuff. I have no idea. Because the other piece, when these allegations came out in 2018, there were several Republicans, including then Senator Mike Braun, who will be our next governor, who asked Curtis Hill to step down. So there were Republicans that were attempting to hold Curtis accountable at that time. So I will
That's good. Yeah. Thank you. If you were any of those people that tried to help hold him accountable, you have the highest praise. And I will always praise you regardless of what political spectrum you lay on. If you were holding bad people accountable, thank you.
Yes, because that should be a job for all of us.
Yes.
But what happened when the Curtis Hill case was dismissed and he came out and said that he was vindicated, that to me was really interesting because I saw that very much as a Donald Trump playbook item of all you have to do is deny.
Right.
If you never, ever take responsibility, then it is as if the incident never existed. And that tactic, I'm bringing that up because that tactic seems to now be in play for Democrat State Senator Greg Taylor out of the Indianapolis area. Because right around the time that Curtis Hill was scheduled to go to trial in this civil lawsuit, the first round of allegations came out against Greg Taylor. This was right before Thanksgiving. The Indy Star published an investigative piece on 3 women who came forward with allegations of sexual misconduct against Senator Greg Taylor while he was a state senator. So all of this has been happening while he's been an elected official. The day that story came out, and of course, people knew that this was happening ahead of time. The day that story came out, the other Senate Democrats in Indiana reelected Greg Taylor to his leadership position to be the leader once again in 2025. And it was just so frustrating. There was another senator, she was running against him, also from the Indianapolis area. She was trying to be leader. And they were like, no, we're going to go with the guy who's got some sexual misconduct allegations. So it was just, and I kind of I got really, really mad. I did some videos on it. It was really, really frustrating because this is the party that is supposed to be for women, right? They're supposed to be the ones that are fighting for us. And just from a political strategy standpoint, let's all keep in mind how little power the Democrats have.
So little.
There are 10 Democratic senators out of 50.
Oh, so painful.
20%, which again, we will remind y'all, that's not reflective of the population.
No.
But only 20% of our state senators are Democrats. So to act as if it would have been too much of a strategic risk to remove Taylor from his leadership position
ridiculous.
is just freaking ridiculous to me. We
Okay, hang
now
on.
know.
So one, move your little mouse.
Oh,
it's in your face.
There we go.
No,
Is that better?
It's still on there. I don't know.
Even see.
Oh, it's me. Oh my God.
I'm gonna say I don't even see my mouse.
Okay. 2. I found out about this through Mad Voters. If you live in Indiana, please follow Mad Voters.
Mad Voters is amazing.
And I was shocked. So I am new to politics, newer than you, Corinne, even though I've ran in the last 2 elections. This last election was for state house level. So that really got me in to state politics, but I was pretty new. So I just assumed we had decent people in power. And I think that's what most Democrats assume, because we're on the right side of history with women's rights, with getting women in power and Not like we're perfect, but I just assumed all the people at the state level were good people. So when I saw this, I literally got nauseous. And then I'm like, well, why isn't Shelley Yoder the lead? I mean, it's not like we don't have better women. 100%. It's not like we don't have women that are either just as competent in the role or better, that are out there leading the charge and don't have sexual assault allegations against them. It's not like we couldn't vote for somebody better.
Right.
And what I want to give the people the benefit of the doubt, there's no playbook. They did the wrong thing. They messed up. Guess what? People mess up.
Yep.
Because the reason I'm saying that is things have changed.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple things happened to that for the change. Do we want to go into it now?
Heck yeah. So what really irritated me even more is, again, I mean, we mentioned this at the beginning. This kind of behavior that is exhibited by someone, and 3 women, that's not nothing. Okay. Somebody in my TikTok, when I mentioned that there are now 6, because spoiler alert, there are now 6 women in total. One of the dudes in my TikTok said, oh my gosh, that is 5 more women than should be necessary to remove this man from power.
Good comment. I like that guy. Good comment.
Right. It should take 1.
It should take 1.
The fact that there were 3 and it was not taken seriously, when we know that had to just be the tip of the iceberg. That's what irritated me more than anything.
And we have sources. You and I have sources that want to remain anonymous.
Yep.
That have come forward that know Greg Taylor and have said, yeah, he is not a great person.
Nope.
Like his character, he's got the MO of somebody that likes to use their power to hurt people.
Yep.
So it's not like it's a very secret that very few people know about. People know about it.
They do.
And they still chose the wrong thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now I want to talk about some badass women in the Democratic Party.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's
keep going. What am I missing? Sorry.
Yeah. No. So then yesterday or the day before, I'm sorry, I'm going to go back to Monday. Okay.
Go for it.
Monday in the Indianapolis Recorder, which is a newspaper that primarily focuses on news and issues for the Black community in Indianapolis. They've been around since like the 1890s.
Cool.
It's one of the oldest Black focused newspapers in the whole country, which is pretty cool that we have that here in Indiana. Greg Taylor offered an exclusive interview to that newspaper. That article came out, and what really struck me about this article was that he compared the treatment he was receiving to the treatment men received under Jim Crow in Louisiana, being deprived, right? Being deprived due process. And I immediately thought of Clarence Thomas in 1991 when he was being in confirmation to be on the Supreme Court. Anita Hill testified about Clarence Thomas's disgusting sexual misconduct in the workplace. And Clarence Thomas called those proceedings a high-tech lynching.
Oh, man.
We saw, so Clarence Thomas, which was funny. So President Biden was a senator at that time. He was on that panel. It was an entire panel of white male senators who were terrified of being called racist. So instead of protecting the Black woman Anita Hill, who was the victim that was testifying, they allowed her character to just be obliterated. And they went with Clarence Thomas. And of course, he's one of our Supreme Court justices. So to see Greg Taylor now,
he's still on there.
He's still on there.
Yeah.
And to see Greg Taylor now saying, I'm being treated just like men were in under Jim Crow in Louisiana is just ridiculous to me. That story comes out. When that story came out, I did a video on it. And at the end of that video, I said, it really feels like more allegations are coming, because this story was obviously laying the groundwork for what was to come. Wouldn't you know it, the next freaking day, 3 more women came forward.
Yeah, I heard more women were going to come forward. I'm so proud of these women.
So glad. Yeah. So now we have 6.
You have to be so brave. It seems like these abusers have a certain way they handle it. It's like a playbook. It's a human behavior thing. If you're one of those people that like to control people that don't have as much power than you, and one of the ways you like to do it is with sexual abuse, it seems to me that they like to paint themselves as the victim.
Oh, of course.
For them, the person in power that makes so much money, that is in charge of so many things and has so many lawyers and money and influence, poor them.
Yeah.
And and people buy it. They do it because it works, or at least it has worked in the past. And if we start figuring out this playbook, we've seen this before.
Oh,
Greg Taylor, someone just said Matt Gaetz.
That report's going to be fun. Yeah.
We've seen this before. If we start calling it out as soon as they do it, oh, you're the victim, the person with all the power. And a side note, I'm always fighting the Parks Department in my county for doing many shady things, and that's their MO. I'm the bully. A regular person who has no power. I have no power in our county government, but the people that can't accurately show their receipts with our taxpayer dollars, which is millions of dollars because we got a riverboat down here, they're the victims and I'm the bully. So it applies to everything, not just sexual abuse. You guys that don't have the power, be on the lookout. Call it out.
Yeah.
It is everywhere. They love this tactic of the victim.
They are. And with Greg Taylor, to again being that man in power, right? Greg Taylor, who is making a good salary, who is an elected state senator, to exploit the suffering that Black men experience in our criminal justice system for his own gain.
Oh, yeah.
Try to deflect from his own actions. Was so stomach churning to me, because I was like, Greg, you're not in the criminal justice system. How dare you compare what you are going through to men who are actually facing charges, who we know are treated poorly in our country. Like, the exploitation of that was so gross to me. And I tried to be very careful and respectful, because obviously I'm a white woman. But to compare yourself to that kind of suffering, it was just so disgusting for me. But he had to do that. So that, to me, you're guilty. Right?
Yeah.
That's all I need to see. When you're willing to go all Clarence Thomas on us with just like Jim Crow, I'm like, because you did it.
And it's such a hard topic because it's not black and white. Like you said, there's not hard evidence. Even when you're someone like Taylor Swift with pictures, it's still hard. And also occasionally,
you see what Josh just said? Darla.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna put it on the screen in a second because I just learned how to do that. Occasionally, people that are not great make up false allegations about people, and again, no one is perfect.
Nope.
And that's what everybody's so afraid of. Everybody is so afraid that they might have messed up one time and somebody took a private, intimate moment and they didn't like it, even though the other person thought they did. It's all shady. And so there's so much fear behind it. And we just have to treat every allegation as its own separate thing. And you're giving evidence to how do we tell whether the person is a bad person or not. And if they're saying this crap, if they're the victim, they don't actually give any proof, they don't explain the situation, they don't apologize to the victim immediately, because people that are flawed but decent and trying to be better usually will really apologize. I've seen it happen online
Yeah.
with the Me Too movement. I've
Yeah.
seen
Yes.
people come out and try to handle like, hey, I'm not the same as these other people. Yes, I should have done this differently. And I'm like, that's how we handle it. We don't go after each person like they're the same.
Yep.
Each instant is different. But that right there, they're the victim,
It's
and then there's multiple people they've hurt that didn't have as much power. It's pretty self-evident that we know in that case. I'm going to pull up Josh, his
yep.
comments. I think I can just pull them on the screen. Like when Matt Gaetz tried to get in front of the report that is going to be released. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And then he said something else that was great.
I just did it. Yeah.
Did it show all of it? Wait. Okay, yeah. Deny attack, reverse victim and offender. That's the playbook of abusers. Exactly
Absolutely.
right.
And
Thank you
that's
for
what we're
saying that.
seeing, because you talk about the apology, right? So when the first 3 women came out with their allegations against Senator Taylor, he gave, I'm not going to call it an apology, but kind of a weak acceptance, maybe, for one of the women. For one of the women, he, at that point in time, he said he maybe unintentionally blurred lines. Okay. So that was something.
Yeah.
That was more than we got from Curtis friggin' Hill, right?
It seems so refreshing and surprising, but we
Yeah.
know more now. We know more.
Well, we know more now, because even that weak ass apology,
Yeah, weak.
he retracted it. He retracted it yesterday and said, actually, no, I deny all 6 of them now. And it was like, dude, come on. So, right? So gross. All of that happened. The 3 other victims, the Jim Crow comparison, 6 women now in total. Yesterday, the Senate Democratic Caucus, 10 members, voted to remove Greg Taylor from his leadership position. So, Senator Shelley Yoder, who is a badass,
yes, loves
the leader of the Senate Democrats in Indiana. And we can hope this is the first step to some accountability. There are still people who are calling on him to resign.
I'd like him to resign. I'm calling on him to resign.
I would like him to resign.
I would like him to resign.
We don't need him.
I think that they should. So this is a start. And I want to say how much work had to be done to get this to happen.
Yep.
Because if Indy Star and all the people that didn't report on it, if these women didn't come forward, he would still be minority leader in the Indiana Senate.
Yep.
And then after these reports came out, you and I said we publicly said we were gonna call these out and we were gonna hold the Democratic Party accountable. And I'm someone that ran for state house in the Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. So I said it, you said it. Then I want to talk about one of my local heroes who I look up to a lot, Destiny Wells. Destiny Wells ran for Secretary of State 2 years ago. That's when I met her. And then she ran for Attorney General in this election. And she did pretty well. She got, I think, over 40% of the vote. Do you know, was it over 40? Do you remember the exact?
I think it was right around 40. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm really proud of her because after the story came out, she posted on her social media saying, as a prominent Democrat in Indiana, she was calling for change. Yep. She said there need to be systems in place to hold these people accountable. And I thought that was really brave of her. I encourage all good Democratic leaders in Indiana to also make statements on your social media today, tomorrow, sometime.
Yep.
Calling for what Destiny is saying. We need steps. And then I really encourage anybody with power to say, Greg Taylor, you should step down, because the chance of him doing this again is high and our tax dollars paying for it. It's not like he's apologized. It's not like he said he's getting therapy. It's not like he said he's going to work on it.
No.
We have no evidence of him. You know, people can change and grow. We know that. I'm willing to forgive people. There's no evidence that he's going to do that.
No.
So if he's not going to do that, we need to call for him to step down, and let's put somebody that's not an abuser. And I would encourage a woman, because we need more women, but whatever. I'll take anybody that doesn't abuse women in that position. So thank you, Destiny. She's the first person I saw with the news come out.
Yeah.
Did you read the Indiana Democrat statement explaining what happened?
Yeah.
It kind of made me sick a little bit,
Yeah.
because it praised Greg Taylor for all of his service and da-da-da-da. And I'm like, come on, you guys, we're getting there. We're getting there. In the letter, when you're finally admitting some wrong and holding somebody accountable, we don't need to praise him. What about the women? These people writing these statements, do you all have any women that you care about, or anybody that doesn't have power? Can you imagine somebody that you love that doesn't have a lot of power working for a prominent Democrat in the state level, and this happening to them, and then write that statement? Okay? Because we're getting there. We're getting there.
And this is where and we've heard this so many times before, is when it's a Republican on specifically maybe on this topic, who does not work, who as a party and as an elected official does not work to advance the causes of women, it's very easy for us to keep them in the bucket of bad, right? They're in the full bucket of bad. So when they commit sexual misconduct, we're like, yep, they suck, please go. When it's Democrats who maybe have done some work to advance policies to try to help women, all of a sudden it's as if, well, we can't erase the good work that they did. But here's the thing, both things can be true at the same time. And we don't have to make it this black and white. Well, if they're not 100% evil, then we can't root against them. No, we can, because we don't need people like that slowing down our agenda. And Sarah, you mentioned taxpayer resources. The fact that any legislative resources are going to be used in the state of Indiana to investigate these claims, to hold people accountable, should appall everyone. We have some big fish to fry during this legislative session. We have Medicaid, education, property taxes, major issues. And that our legislature would have to devote any of their energy to dealing with these bad apples is really, really frustrating, because maybe if we lived in a different place, if we had a different set of accountability, when this first incident happened, which I think was about 2013, the first incident pointing to Greg Taylor, the first one would have been investigated, he would have been done. The Democratic Party could have abandoned him. He could have lost his support. Somebody else could have run in his place. We could have prevented at least 5 additional people from being assaulted, and prevented all of these legislative resources that are going to be taken up doing these investigations. So look at it the same way that we look at freaking healthcare, right? An ounce of prevention, that's all we need to do. Let's focus on prevention. Let's take people seriously when it happens. And then maybe we will not have these horrific outcomes a decade later.
And it's not like there aren't many more amazing Democrats in the state of Indiana to take this spot.
Yes,
there are. So it's not like you can't find one. It's just fear. It's scary. And it's also more work. It's not more work in the long run. If you do more work now, it's going to protect future victims, and it's going to save Indiana money. But it's scary. It's new. Like you said, we're having to write policy, and hopefully Destiny's going to keep leading the charge and get some stuff in there. But it's worth it. It's the right thing. Now, I don't want people to think I'm slamming the Indiana State Democratic Party. I just want to go ahead and tell people I ran for State House, and I got on really late on the ballot in July, and they did nothing but help me. Yeah. They never judged me. They never told me how to run my campaign. They never told me what messaging I needed to do. I got to be 100% myself and shout out from the rooftops the problems we have in Indiana.
Yep.
And I want to say I am proud to be an Indiana Democrat. I am prouder because from 2 days ago, we have enacted change. Yep. Greg Taylor is not going to be the Senate minority anymore.
Yep.
I am so proud of us for doing that. I am always going to be pushing for more
Yep.
because as a woman and as a human that doesn't have a ton of power, we can do better.
We
And
absolutely can.
those women that came bravely forward and said what happened to them, they freaking matter.
Mm-hmm.
They matter. And if we all stand together and we all give these women a voice, thank you to the people that reported. Thank you to everybody that talked about this and said we need to hold Greg Taylor accountable. We need to keep doing this. And the Democrats in Indiana need to be leaders doing this. And we can.
We
We
can.
have the people. I met so many incredible Indiana Democrats this election cycle. It really pumped me up. The election didn't go great, but we're not going away. We're still
No,
trying.
look at what we're doing now. This is a direct result of
Look at
that.
what these freaking women are doing. Look at
Yeah.
what these Democratic women are doing. I'm
Yep.
so proud of them. But we can keep going. And I know it's scary, but we're on the right side of history. We're doing it.
We are.
Let's be a national standard in Indiana. Let
Let's
Indiana
do
Democrats
something right.
lead the charge and
Let's-
show other states how
Yeah.
to do this, because it's not like this isn't a problem in every single state, in every political party.
It absolutely is. And I'm so glad you brought that up about the Democratic Party, because we see hope there, right? I think we could take this same issue maybe into the Indiana Republican Party and not see any hope there, because there's not a great track record of caring about women in any capacity. So we at least have some hope. And there's another big thing that happened with the Indiana Democratic Party in the last couple of weeks. The current chair, Mike Schmuhl, said that he's not seeking re-election to lead the party going forward. So there will be a new election for Indiana Democrats in March to select a new chair. And again, Mike Schmuhl has done.
I think he did a good job. I like him.
He's done what he could. He moved the ball. If we use a football metaphor, right? The ball has been advanced down the field a little bit.
It is hard to have that job.
It's hard to have that. And I'm sure it's exhausting. And
I wouldn't want that job.
No. So we do have an opportunity. So the Greg Taylor, minority removal, and I just looked this up, Sarah. I wanted to tell you real quick. So he's been replaced by Shelley Yoder.
Yay, Shelley, love Shelley.
Yay, Shelley Yoder.
Shelley.
So
She's
now
amazing.
there are 5 Democrats in leadership, because there are 5 separate leadership positions for the minority party. So this is not leading the state Senate. Obviously, there's only 10 of them. But there are 5 leadership positions, including minority leader, assistant minority leader, caucus chair, assistant caucus chair, and caucus whip. So those are 5 positions that both Democrats and Republicans hold in each chamber. Out of those 5 positions now for the Senate Democrats, 3 of them are women.
Oh!
So we have Shelley Yoder as the head. We have Senator Andrea Hunley as the assistant minority leader, and we've got Senator Lakeisha Jackson as assistant caucus chair. So 3 out of the 5 now, we now have a women majority. And I will also say, because Sarah and you and I are super honest about this, there are some freaking amazing men who are fighting for women's rights every single day. This is not taking anything away from that, but this is an important step, gesture, symbol, and indication of progress, because every single one of these women is just as qualified. And I do want to point out that Senator Andrea Hunley is the one that ran against Greg Taylor to be minority leader in November, and she was passed over for him. And wow, the fact that that happened just a couple of weeks, that we watched so many others pick a certain man over another woman in the election, to watch it happen again within our own party was just a dagger to the heart. And I really felt for Senator Hunley, but to see that she's back in another leadership position, she's going to be great. So is Shelley Yoder. Hopefully that can be a real start of some change.
And I follow some emails and some prominent Indiana Democrat stuff. Word on the Democratic Indiana side is there are some incredible women that may run for the state chair to take Mike's place. And I know some of these women that are
Mhm.
thinking about running, and they are incredible. And I think we can get a strong woman as I think this is very possible.
I think
And
so
then I
too.
think we can see some policies being made to protect people from abusers in the workplace. And
Mhm.
I think we can protect people in Indiana state government on the Democrat side. I really think this is coming. This is
Yeah.
happening, and I'm really pumped. And if there's any good Republican women out there, because I personally know some in the community and they're amazing Republican women, I would love to know your thoughts on this subject, privately or publicly, because we don't have as many good stories in Indiana on the Republican side of the people being abused
Mhm.
getting some justice. We
Yes.
need more on the Democrat side. More should be happening, but some is happening.
Yeah.
And I encourage the good Republicans. There are a lot out there, you all. I promise. I've met a bunch of them. The
Yep.
good Republicans out there that care about victims and people being abused. I call for them to make policies.
Mhm.
We don't have to have these bad people in power. There are enough good Republicans out there to fill these spots to make better change.
Yep.
Um, it, I think getting it done in the Democrats first and leading an example and putting it out there. What is the policy? Maybe other people could just copy and paste it. Let's make it easy for people. I think that's the best way to start this. Go Indiana Democrats. Let's do
Yeah.
this. But I really encourage Republicans and any other businesses. If you're listening to this and you work in a workplace that's toxic and people are being abused with other people at the top, you don't have to take that. You can call that out. Now, sometimes you don't have power and sometimes you get fired.
Mhm.
Corinne. And but so be prepared for that. If you have enough power to be able to call it out,
Yeah.
I encourage you to try to. And I know that I am very privileged because I don't have a boss that controls me. I have in the past and it's awful, but I don't have one now. So I get it. I'm just saying the only way to push the culture forward is to call it out, shine a light on it. Imagine it's your daughter, your child, your son, your whoever that you love that is not as powerful and strong as you are. Imagine they are the ones working under a boss that is treating them this way.
Yep.
How can we push it forward to protect them?
And there are so many issues that are tied to just a general disrespect and a general distrust of women. I mean, characterizing women as victims, as that they're manipulative or they're trying to exploit men or they're trying to get money or they're trying to there are so many issues in the state of Indiana that we can look as being tied to that general disrespect. When we look at something like education funding and teacher pay, teachers have largely been made up of women. It's been a field dominated by women. And for so long, teaching was not seen as a profession. It was just seen as, something fun the wife can do to get out of the house a little bit while the husband's making the real money. And so we look at that attitude against women and whether or not they're taken seriously.
Right.
We look at how healthcare is treated for women, not just on the reproductive front, but on all fronts. Women receive less funding for studies. Women receive less pain medication because they're not taken seriously. So all of these where we just kind of toss women aside in a sense that their suffering, their pain is just part of being a woman. You're going to get paid less and you're going to get treated like crap and you're going to be in more pain than us. So just go deal with that because that's part of being a woman. And so when you kind of look at all of these issues tied together, some of them feel like just they're social issues and we can't control, but we can.
We
There
can.
is
We can.
that we can. And you mentioned Mad Voters earlier. Mad Voters put out their legislative priorities for 2025. And one of those priorities is dedicating funding to testing the backlog of rape kits that exist in Indiana. Just in Marion County, there are over 6,600 rape kits that are sitting on a shelf with no funding to be tested. That's just in one freaking county in this whole state, over 6,600. And so when we look at all of these issues tied together, what are we taking seriously? What crimes, what treatment, what salary initiatives, what healthcare initiatives? When we have this general disdain or distrust for women as a culture in an incredibly conservative and religiously dominated state, we have to look at the ripple effect of how we treat women's sexual assault and how that trickles down to so many other areas where we can legislate change for women. Childcare, pre-K. Indiana is abysmal. We do not put public money towards a universal pre-K program. Childcare, we do not. So we don't take women's labor seriously. We don't take their profession seriously. We don't take their bodies seriously. And all of that is in one toxic pie. And I think when we start to clean up a slice at a time, we can start to see that women, this is such a dumb thing that I'm going to have to say, that women deserve the same treatment as anybody else. No shit, right? But you can look at all of those issues kind of tangled together and see how these rape kits are not being tested because they're tied to a sexual crime, because we don't really care, because it's expensive. I mean, that attitude is really, really harmful. So that's an area where we can also mobilize some people and say, hey, put your money where your mouth is. Show us that you care about victims and get money to get these kits tested, because those are predators. Those are predators
that could be hurting our loved ones.
Absolutely.
And we're doing not, and what about all the victims that took time? That's a trauma. They have the trauma, then they go through trauma to get it reported, and then nothing is done. So imagine how they feel. Where's their value?
And you brought up that stat in the beginning, Sarah, of like
4,000 to 1.
4,000, which that should make all of us pass out. 1 out of 4,000. We also know
1 out of 4,000. So there's 4,000 sexual crimes, and about one person gets held accountable for every 4,000.
Which is just effing crazy.
Yeah.
The other piece is like, if we look at 6,600 kits just in Marion County, we also know what the stats tell us about just the number that are reported. So usually it's about 1/3 of assaults are actually reported. So that 6,600 rape kits represents over 20,000 assaults. 2/3 of those never got reported. So when we also think of it in those terms, just in one county, how many offenders are out there among us that we don't know about, who aren't being held accountable? All of us, especially the party of law and order, the Republican Party, should be much more concerned about that.
I know. They act like they want to care about women, like they're so scared about our children. We better ban books that could teach them something scary,
like that have boobs in them.
Oh, or 2 moms.
Oh my God.
Oh my gosh. But then the real things, we have real crimes happening, not being reported.
Yep.
Those they just deny, don't talk about. Let's talk about fake, scary things that don't really exist, or that barely ever exist. But the real problem,
the drag shows, right?
Yeah,
we're going to be really, really upset about those drag shows. But the fact that maybe 20,000 women have been sexually assaulted in our county, like, really, those are real things that happened that you're not making up.
Yeah. So this is a theme. By the way, that last segment you just said, you are incredible. Thanks for summing it up so eloquently and beautifully. You're amazing.
Thank you.
I just want to show all the themes of all of our various shows are tied together with one thing. Our culture wants us to feel hopeless and to sit at home and not get out in our communities and not try to make things better. They want you to feel hopeless and defeated.
Yep.
And the entire point of Project Next is to make your life better by showing you it's not hopeless.
Yep.
This week, women putting pressure on Democratic leaders to be better actually resulted in real things happening.
Something real happened.
Something happened this week.
Yes.
Something tangible. And it's because of reporting. It's because of strong female leaders in the Democratic Party in the state of Indiana. I think we might have helped too, maybe. You know, we pumped it out that we were going to do this show and we were pretty upset about what was happening. I think that could have led to some, you all, we can do this.
Yeah.
Have hope. I know things are bleak right now, and tune into our shows because we're going to be showing you step by step, wherever you live in the country, things you can do to make your life better, to hold these people accountable. Never, never give up hope.
Yep. Never. And when you find yourself, you know, because we're going to talk about this on some of our other shows too, of kind of being sucked into the doom scrolling, or, you know, isolating yourself on your sofa, scrolling Instagram reels or TikTok news clips, things that make you feel really defeated. Let's just start being aware of those patterns and breaking out of it and putting our energy into these spaces here, where we can be in community with one another and actually come up with some kind of solutions. What you said, Sarah, I'm so glad you said that. We can point to something that changed because of activism. And the quote that I
real example this week,
real example, right? And the quote from crap, and I'm going to forget her name, I'm going to look it up, but the quote that I say all the time is, never doubt that a small group of people can change the world, because in fact, it is the only thing that ever has. So
that's great. That's beautiful.
I say that all the time, because anybody that's like, oh, there's 5 of you, oh, there's 10 of you. And it's like, no, listen, that's actually what has made change. And we have so many examples to point to throughout history of where a small group of people, whether it is in a lawsuit, it is in a legislative initiative, as few as 4 or 5 people did create a policy that we now still live under, whether it was 100 years ago or 200 years ago. So there are so many examples happening, and we stay on it. And I wanted to put this last comment up here because what Nancy said is absolutely right. It doesn't matter party. We have a real issue here in Indiana. We have a president who is going to take office here in a couple of weeks, who is a sexual predator as well. A convicted sexual predator. It was only on a civil lawsuit. I get it. But a convicted sexual predator. And we cannot discount we cannot discount the kind of tone that sets all the way down. So we have to be the change. We have to be the resistance to that. So thank you for saying that, Nancy. And thank you for joining us.
I want to shout out before we leave. I did an episode of a new show called Dr. Peck or Dr. Tim with Tim Peck about the medical system and how we could make it better. And it was the first premiere episode. It was yesterday, and you catch it now on Facebook and YouTube. Sarah Blessing Project Next or Project Next on Facebook, and on YouTube, it's one word, Project Next Movement. You can catch that episode, and it's the same themes. They want us to feel hopeless. But Tim says with a few easy changes, we could change the healthcare system so that we actually care about human lives and their life being better. If we make that the incentive, then we can change healthcare, doctors, everything, all of the problems. And he explained it in a way that I understood it. And at the end of the episode, I was like, oh, I have hope. It is not as hard to fix healthcare as I thought.
It's not. It's not.
Again, they want us to feel hopeless.
It's so big, so we should just throw our hands up and do nothing instead of doing some smaller incremental things that could actually help everybody. So I'm so glad you said that, Sarah. Yeah, go check out that episode with Dr. Tim.
Yes. So yeah, it's a new show called Project Next. Dr. Tim, he's an ER medical doctor. Corinne.
Yes.
Fantastic first show.
Yeah, this was so fun. I really appreciate y'all being here. And thank you, Sarah.
I'm so proud of you for doing all of that reporting and research and so eloquently and amazingly explaining what's going on in Indiana politics. And you're going to do a lot more of this.
Yeah.
This is how we make things better.
Yep. Lots of politics, y'all. We will see you next time. We will be getting together again next week. Even though it's Christmas week, we're going to give you all a Christmas present at some point next week and pop back on. Because even these weeks leading up to Indiana session, even though it's the holidays, there is a lot of news that's going to be coming out over the next couple of weeks.
Please share. Wherever you're watching this, share it, send it to a friend that cares about this topic. A lot of people don't know about us yet. And the more people that know, the better the chance that we can keep creating positive change for our communities, for
and
your life, your life
that we need. And just think about it, y'all. Like, do you remember when people would be like, oh, well, I loved the Clash before they were even popular, you know?
Ooh,
like,
be one of the first listeners.
Be one of our first groupies. You're gonna be like, I knew these girls before they were even a thing.
I knew it when they had major problems on their lives. I was following them. I was like, guys, your sound sucks. You know? So yeah, be one of the first. Yeah. We're gonna have merch soon. We're gonna have more shows. It's big things are coming, and I'm so excited about it.
Me too.
All right,
Thanks,
love
everybody.
you guys. Proud of you, Corinne.
Proud of you too, Sarah.
Great first show. Okay, bye, you guys. Thank you.
Bye,
love
y'all.
you all. Thanks for tuning in.